Yeshua told his disciples he would make them fishers of men. And for the last 2,000 years, his disciples have been doing just that. So, what do the prophets say comes after the time of fishing? Judgment by way of hunters. Let's talk about it. Hey, this is Off the Cuff, and I'm Steve from TorahFamily.org. Though not always identical, we know history is indeed cyclical, and it's cyclical for a reason, and that's why we're told to remember it, as noted here in Isaiah 46, verses 9 and 10. We're to remember the things from long ago because they point to what's coming. From ancient times, what is still to come. Now, we know Yahweh has judged his people in the past because of rebellion, following the ways they wanted instead of choosing to fully obey his instructions. Consider Jeremiah 16, for example. Let's read 8 verses 10 through 17. Jeremiah 16, starting in verse 10. And when you tell this people all these words, and they say to you, why has Yahweh pronounced all this great evil against us? What is our iniquity? What is the sin that we have committed against Yahweh our God? Then you shall say to them, because your fathers have forsaken me, declares Yahweh, and have gone after other gods, and have served and worshipped them, and have forsaken me, and have not kept my law. And because you have done worse than your fathers, for behold, every one of you follows his stubborn, evil will, refusing to listen to me. Therefore I will hurl you out of this land into a land that neither you nor your fathers have known, and there you shall serve other gods day and night, for I will show you no favor. Therefore, behold, the days are coming, declares Yahweh, when it shall be no longer said, as Yahweh lives, who brought up the people of Israel out of the land of Egypt, but as Yahweh lives, who brought up the people of Israel out of the north country, and out of all the countries where he had driven them. For I will bring them back to their own land that I gave to their fathers. Now, on a quick side note here, he just took us from judgment and banishment to the second Exodus after the tribulation. And remember, it's all concerning his people. Now, the last 2 verses. Behold, I am sending for many fishers, declares Yahweh, and they shall catch them. And afterward I will send for many hunters, and they shall hunt them from every mountain and every hill, and out of the clefts of the rocks. For my eyes are on all their ways. They are not hidden from me, nor is their iniquity concealed from my eyes. Notice how he said he would send fishers out first to catch them, but then hunters to hunt them in judgment. Remember, history is cyclical, so where is this repeated? As noted earlier, Yeshua told his disciples he would make them fishers of men. Historically speaking, what comes after the fishers? The hunters. The judgment. Knowing that, what can we learn from why the judgment came and who it came on? Let's briefly review the verses in Jeremiah to find out. Notice here in verse 10 how the people think they're doing fine. In their eyes, they're obeying. But were they obeying the word of Yahweh or just following the teachings and traditions passed down from their fathers? We find out in the next 2 verses. Yahweh said it was the fathers before them who forsook him and didn't keep his law. They didn't fully obey. And then Yahweh says these have behaved even worse than the fathers, following the stubbornness of their evil heart instead of obeying Yahweh. So they were doing what was passed down to them and serving Yahweh how they wanted. But Yahweh says they weren't obeying him at all. And remember, these people thought all was good. they didn't think they were rebelling. Yahweh even said their hearts were evil, ra in the Hebrew, the very same word used to describe those who danced before the golden calf at Mount Sinai. And remember, regarding that event, they declared the event a festival unto Yahweh. Thus, they chose to worship him how they wanted, and not in obedience to his Torah. And then judgment came. And again, those in Jeremiah's day were thinking all was good, but judgment is being declared. Again, they thought all was good, but they were serving Yahweh how they wanted to, and not obeying his Torah. Now, I know many would say, well, I'm not evil. I pray, I read, I go to church. I've accepted Jesus as my Lord and Savior. That's great, seriously. But are you doing what he gave us to do? Remember, the people around the golden calf declared what they were doing as something unto Yahweh. But he declared them a stiff-necked people, meaning they do what they want with no regards to what he wants from them. And he sent judgment as a result. We need to remember Yahweh never said these people in Jeremiah 16 weren't faithful in rituals to him. Obviously, they thought all was right. Again, the text seems to imply they were surprised at their coming judgment. But Yahweh said they didn't obey him. You can do tons of great and awesome things for him, but are you doing what he wants you to do? Or are you just doing the traditions passed down? Remember, here in Matthew 7:23, we see people just like those in Jeremiah. They're surprised in their judgment. In fact, they declare all the good things they have done in his name. But we see Yeshua calling them workers of lawlessness, meaning they didn't obey the Torah. Again, just like those in Jeremiah 16. They thought all was good, but they weren't obeying his Torah. I know many would say, but Steve, we don't have to obey the Torah anymore. Okay, with having Yeshua's words on the screen here, let's look at 1 John chapter 2. 1 John chapter 2, starting in verse 3. We know that we have come to know him if we obey his commands. The man who says, I know him, but does not do what he commands is a liar, and the truth is not in him. But if anyone obeys his word, God's love is truly made complete in him. This is how we know we are in him. Whoever claims to live in him must walk as Jesus did. So, if we know him, we obey his commands. Well, what did he command? Matthew 23 shows him commanding us to obey the Pharisees because they taught Moses, but also commanded us to not do what the Pharisees did. Why? Because they didn't follow what they taught, that being Moses, the Torah. So, if you know him, you'll obey his command to obey Moses. Verse 6 from 1 John says, whoever claims to live in him must walk as Jesus did. Well, how did Yeshua walk? He walked in obedience to the Torah. Otherwise, our spotless lamb is no longer spotless. So, there's your answer to WWJD. Any believer not pursuing obedience to the Torah is walking in a deception, thinking all is good, but it isn't. In fact, they'll find themselves in the exact same situation as those in Jeremiah's day, the exact same situation of those in Matthew chapter 7, trusting the teachings and traditions passed down from the church fathers and setting aside the instructions of Yahweh, trusting in their own works and ways instead of pursuing a life of obedience to his eternal word. And that's what so many people do today. Many people cling to the ways and teachings of the church fathers, forgetting it was the church fathers who declared the law of Yahweh was done away with. Just as in Jeremiah's day, judgment is coming on those who believe all is good, but don't realize they aren't following Yahweh. They're following the ways of man. Yahweh has sent out the fishers to teach his word, but that time is coming to a close. Hunting season is almost here. The hunters are coming, and they're coming for all who set aside the instructions of Yahweh to follow the teachings and traditions of the fathers before them. Now is not the time to argue in pride. Now is the time to learn from history, biblical history, before you end up on the wrong side of it. Well, that's all I have. Please, please think about it. Pray about it. But more than anything, be a doer of the word and not a hearer only. Until next time, Shalom.